Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then. In their heads, living free, I ain't paying rent. Wake up in the AM making G's like Mercedes-Benz. Whoa, yeah, please don't take offense.
Hello, everybody. Again, Cockriser, the show. I'm Jamie Jones. My partner is not in the studio today, and wife, Monique Jones. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing today?
I am good for episode 4, season 1. We are here today to do what we do. And if you didn't know, if you're new to listening to our podcast, we don't know what each other are going to talk about today. We come with our own topics and we trade off. And hopefully it's enjoyable, and hopefully we capture some things that everybody's thinking about, or maybe they're not, and we make them go, that's something to think about. Monique, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think that in the last 4 episodes or 3 episodes, I started out what we wanted to talk about. So I'm going to let you be the lead today, and you start
All
out
right,
what you want to talk about.
I can do that. You know what? I love this country. I love America. I love America, but America's like your family. It's like there's some concerns. There's some alcoholics. There may be a few criminals sprinkled out there. There's some stuff that you just shake your head at, but nobody can talk about my family except for us. So as Americans, we could talk about being American and all the stuff that's kind of screwed up right now. But it's still the best country to live in the world. I think that's what people need to realize, right? No matter what your disposition is, it'll be worse if it's someplace else under the same circumstances. It can be no better than being in America for many different reasons, and I'll touch on some of the subjects there to kind of tie into that. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty positive about America, even though all the stuff that's going on. No matter what side of the political aisle you're on, how you feel that's going great or poorly, I think that the only place that it could be this messy while also being this good is in the United States. That's how we were built. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. Our country was built on violence. Our country was built on taking things from individuals, unfortunately. Our country was built on great things, immigrants, migrants, foreigners, call them whatever you want to call them respectfully. But without that collective melting pot, it wouldn't be here. Now, is it unfortunate that some people have taken advantage and on the backs of slaves and on the backs of American or indigenous Indians, if I'm saying that right, or the indigenous population that was here? And there are many, there were Africans here before there were pilgrims here, or before Christopher Columbus got here. That all being said, and people give comments all the time. Well, I wasn't here 400 years ago or 1,000 years ago, so it doesn't matter. But it does, because you wouldn't be here if that 1,000 years ago didn't happen to set it up the way it is. And the beautiful thing about America is we still keep our core, but yet we change. It might not be as fast enough, might not be settled enough, it might not be as good enough, but it's better than other places. You can chime in on that. But I'm feeling very positive about America, regardless of what's going
on. This is a topic that is hard for me to talk about, only for the fact is that I see that this country is in such a disarray with how things are going. It's not settling for me. I don't feel like people feel safe anymore. They're unsure about what's going on. And it brings a lot of concerns. And I think that the American people have, and again, it doesn't matter who you voted for or whatever way you, the side of the parties that you voted for. I think that even if you voted for Republican, some people are still raising their eyebrows about what has taken place and why certain decisions have been made, and people have agreed to these decisions under the power of our president. Again, not much for me to say because it's a very, very hard situation. It's a very touchy situation for me, I should say. I don't like to talk about politics, not even with my husband.
This doesn't need to be a political conversation.
When
America
you're talking about
is more than politics.
yeah, I understand that, but I feel like I, I do, it's just, I just, it's not something I'd like to touch on. I'm just very disgusted with how our country is going right now. And
And
it's
that
just,
is the great thing because you can be disgusted. You can
yeah.
voice your disgust and nobody's going to throw you in jail. Nobody's going to put tape over your mouth and throw you in an all women's prison. Nobody's going to try to shut you down and put you away because you don't agree with all the things that are going on. And when do we ever agree? If we ever agreed, we wouldn't need the parties and the branches of government that we have to keep things in checks and balance. No matter how sometimes they don't seem to work, they always end up working out. And let me, you said something that was interesting. You said you don't feel safe. See, I said that you fooled yourself into safety before because you just didn't know everything that was going on out there because we didn't have all the tools and avenues of communication to be instantly told, gratified, scared, terrified, elated, because now it's instant. So now you're aware of more. These things were going on back in the 20s and 30s, and
Hmm.
just like there were like 3 or 4 earthquakes this morning out in
Right.
California. That was
I read
happening
that.
100 years ago. You just didn't hear about it because there was nobody to tell you about it. So
Right.
we know more. So yeah, you're going to be freaked out more because you're like, wow, this stuff happens, but it's
Hmm.
good. So in sense, that should make you more safe or cautious because you know that there's a lot of dumb shit that happens, and at least you get a chance to know about it. I mean, and look, there's a lot of things that are screwed up. I was gonna say to begin, I was like, well, we don't have to have worry about having a war, on our land, on our country. We defend ourselves, but at the same time, we're at war with ourselves with gun violence, right? And
Yes.
and and
Hmm.
mass and mass shootings and all
Shootings.
those things. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of things that we could talk about. We could talk about racial environment, racial concerns, which is real. We're a country that
Hmm.
was based on racism. We could talk about how it looks right now, where it looks like we're moving not only further to the right, which not necessarily is bad, but yet we could be moving backwards as well, which is, the whole 2 steps, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to do that. And we wouldn't be able to do it effectively unless we were a democracy. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, this one person, we can say, oh, he's just out there doing whatever he's doing. Well, he'll eventually, and he has been checked and balanced. I'm not in any way saying that I agree with everything he's done. He's done some things that are actually all right, but he's done some things that make you question. But at the end of the day, there's a Congress and there's a judicial system that has those
Hmm.
checks and balances. And last but not least, there's 300 million people out there that have
Hmm.
an opportunity to weigh in and vote when they want to. See, I don't get mad when people don't vote. I don't get mad because it's like you have the right to vote or not vote. So if you don't vote, it's on you.
Hmm.
You can still complain because it's America, but you can't get mad at people who do or don't vote. It's like
Hmm.
that's your right. You take it as that right and you do what you want with it. That's another great thing about America. You have that choice. That doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean it's supposed to happen. Like there's some things that I don't believe that are rights. I'm not going to get into that because they're kind of controversial. That people think that
Hmm.
should be rights. I don't think
Right.
they are rights. I think that they're things that you have the like what is it that have the right to being happy and free. But that doesn't include. That's like saying, well, I have a right to be a billionaire. I do, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. That doesn't mean I should have it. If I work for it and get it, that's that's fine, right?
Hmm.
I think that's the interesting thing too. We go back to safety. It's like we know much more. It's like people get mad at all these billionaires that are happening because of the tech industry. The only difference is back in the day, there weren't as many, but they were unseen. They could be behind the scenes, and you didn't know
Yes.
how rich they
Hmm.
were. Now, you become a billionaire or 100 millionaire, and you're just trying to live your life. You got people coming at you because all of a sudden they can find out. They know where you live and all that stuff. So it's interesting. But then again, that's what makes not that particular part, but that's what makes this country great. But that's also why I think this whole um, illegal immigration thing is a big topic because it's not that much different than other countries. I remember I used to work for a company that was headquartered in Denmark, and used to
Mm-hmm.
go there quite often, and go to the airport in Copenhagen, and you're there enough, you start seeing the same people, you get the same driver and all that stuff, and he's driving me out to the suburbs in Copenhagen for a meeting, and we just started talking. It was just fascinating, all the things, because I think they pay like 62% or 65% income tax, which we would think is ridiculous. But they
Mm-hmm.
get a lot. They get a lot for it. Like their kids go to school, go to college, go to anywhere they want in the world. I believe they go to college for free and then get their master's. But the problem is that their tax base was lowering because all those benefits, people were leaving and not coming back. And then what
Mm-hmm.
was happening is they were getting immigrants to come in, and they got very nationalist real quick. And we discussed that because, of course, me being black and the gentleman, being white, but he's a Dane. He's a Dane. It's like I get it. I'm in your country, and he explained it to me. It's like, Jamie, we put all this money, all our lives. We pay, for what you pay $30,000 for a brand new car. We got to pay 90. Because he was a
Right.
cab driver. He was just telling me about the whole cab driver thing and how they have to drive for years, and before they can get this, and this is how much it costs, and how much housing. Now people have it. They do it. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
we pay so much in. It's kind of like if you put all this money into your 401k account, and somebody can come over and start taking from it just because they happen to knock on the door of your house and said, "Hey, can I stay here for a while?" And then they have access to your 401k. I got that. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's not racism. To me, that's equity. They put
Okay.
equity into a system. They
Mm-hmm.
expect to get that equity out. It's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
social security check. It's like you put equity in that system, you expect to get equity out, and then somebody comes along and they have access to something that you've been contributing to all your life. It's like, should they have those resources? Because you go over there, you don't see any homeless people.
And
They're all living like they got a $35,000 job in the United States. Not rich, but then again, they got roofs over their heads, they got food. So I understood it from, and this was years ago. I mean, it was like,
mm-hmm.
God, this was like 20 years ago. And I got it as far as how different, when you go to different countries, how you got to put on a different perspective. And they're not thinking, oh, their color. They just happen to be from Northern Africa, or they just happen to be from someplace else. They could not have cared any less what skin
Mm-hmm.
color, what language they were talking. What they cared about is they put a certain amount of equity into the system. And if those people
Mm-hmm.
did, then they wouldn't have a problem. But they had, because they just got here. So it was like, now I didn't agree with how they executed on that, like putting people in kind of like camps or tent camps and stuff like that. But I got and I understood the equity that's
Mm-hmm.
involved and the emotional attachment to that equity. And I said, and I'm going back to tax base. So they're losing younger people because they're going to school and they're staying where they are. So they're not getting that money back in that tax base. And that's the only difference
Mm-hmm.
between third world countries and first world countries is tax base, by the way, at the end of the day. That's what the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line is. You got to have a tax base to be a successful country. They were in a tax base crisis. It wasn't a nationalist crisis. It was like equity. And
Mm-hmm.
why are we giving our equity away when it's supposed to be there, not only for us to be able to use, but for the rest of the people who contributed to be able to use?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not
Mm-hmm.
racism. That's not, it might be
Right.
prejudice, but there's nothing wrong with prejudice. They're
Mm-hmm.
two different words, right? You've been in a situation, you know it's wrong. It's like, I'm not going to touch the stove. Don't touch the stove, little Jamie. I'm gonna touch it. It's hot. Now I know for the rest of my life, never ever touch that stove or tap it to see if it's hot. That's prejudice. As we talk
Mm-hmm.
about all the time, racism is like, I don't like you because you got on red shoes, and if you got on red shoes, you're the worst thing in the world. Just because you have on red shoes and I have on blue shoes, and you're not a blue shoe person. That's crazy. That's the insidious craziness of racism.
Yeah. Um, and I'll touch on racism. I remember being at the salon, and there was a young lady that worked for me, and her sister was getting married, and they were um, very, very, very wealthy. I will say that they owned about 10 McDonald's. Okay, so they were very wealthy. Now we lived in a little town, not. nothing fancy, but if you go down the street, it's you got multi-million-dollar homes on the water. But in the town that my salon was in, it wasn't like anything, spectacular. But anyway, I'm doing her sister's hair. They have the whole wedding party in the salon. There's a black guy that walks by the mom's car, and she says, "My goodness, what is he doing?" And I said, "I'm sorry. What's the problem?" But she instantly just thought that he was going to go into her car because he was a black man walking by her car. And I literally said to her, "Well, if he was white, would you have said the same thing?" And she got like so clutched her pearls, like, oh my God, like, catching herself in front of all of the party that she had there. It was just the most racist statement ever. And I think that that's what you were saying is like that to me is like, okay, that's racism because you looked at the color of this man's skin and just assumed that he was going to break into your car.
Well, the problem with that, not a problem with that,
Mm-hmm.
that is very true. But you know what? There's perspective. And the perspective
Okay.
is what she has been exposed to her entire life, what she saw in the news, what she saw on TV, what she heard from her friends. And that can prejudice you to when you see that, you think that. I don't, it's unfortunate that we get exposed to that. And everybody gets exposed to that. But that's one of the battles that all diverse or different ethnicities face when they're portrayed a certain way. That's why it's so important when people say, I want to see somebody who looks like me in certain positions in certain walks of life so I can believe I can do it, right? So I can believe that I
Absolutely.
belong there too. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of that insidious cycle of, if you're the majority, you have a responsibility to, if you choose to take it or not, to represent all walks of life as you see it. Now, excuse me, I hit the microphone. That doesn't mean, like we were talking about last show, that there needs to be like 8 out of 10 couples you see in a commercial are interracial, because that's not
Right.
realistic. But it is
Yeah.
realistic to see, 3 or 4 out of 10 people around that don't look like you, aren't shaped
Mm-hmm.
like you, noses don't look like you, hair doesn't look like you, and not be alarmed. But it's all, and that's where I think people get so frustrated with the media on both sides, because the media can portray it on both sides. The media can hide it when it needs to be transparent, but that shapes us. And I think that, and the good thing about social media and the good thing about media is that we're more astute about it, so we know what's happening. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
call it fake news, whether you call it the liberal media, whether you call it the conservative media, everybody's going to have their perspective. And as long as you know, you do yourself a
Mm-hmm.
disservice if you don't watch CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you read the Daily Beast, or you read the Washington Post and you read the Washington Times. So you can get both sides of the perspective, so you can kind of figure it out, on your own, what you believe and where you want to go with your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that you saying that, I understand it could be whatever she was exposed to, right? And
I'm
I
not
can go
trying to give
on.
her an excuse though. I'm not letting off the
No,
hook.
but just no, just hear me out because then I can. But then I can also say to you that I've had a black woman come in my salon,
Sure.
and she says, "Can you lock that door?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, are you serious?" Yeah, I'm like, I'm not expecting this from you, right? But how? But hear me out, Monique. I'm not from this area. I just don't feel. I'm just want to make sure that nobody could just walk in here. And I say, you know what? I'll lock the door for you. So I look at it from her perspective, and I'm like, okay, I understand that she's saying, can you lock the door because she doesn't. Why she doesn't feel safe? I said, I'm in here every day, all day, and I'm like, I can guarantee you're okay.
But I will tell you,
Now, what?
black people are racist too. I hope we know that.
Oh,
I hope we
I
know
didn't.
that. I hope we know that.
I
We can
know
be
that
racist.
very
We can
much.
be very racist too. We could be very racist even within our color
Oh,
spectrum, which is wild. Which is wild, right?
absolutely. Yes.
Which is wild. Like I didn't
Yes.
like my grandmother because of the way she treated my mother, because my father's very fair, like you. Well, my mother's not my complexion. She's a shades darker. But my father's side of the family is very fair. And when
Mm-hmm.
we used to go to family reunions, people were like, well, why, why you giving shade to my mom like that? So from the time I was like 5, was not feeling my grandmother. That was my first experience. Like, why are you treating her? Or at least it appeared to be. Of course, they didn't. My
Right.
parents didn't say that. But you pick up on things, and then eventually, when I got old
Yes,
enough,
absolutely.
you could talk about it. But yeah, I mean, we could be, and we. I'm not even gonna say we have the right. We have the right to be prejudiced because of some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that have happened to us and we've gone through. I won't go back to the 400-year thing, but I'm on the last 50 years. Last 60 years we have prejudiced thoughts because of the perspective and what we've been exposed to. So we have to speak about it. But there's still no room for racism from anybody, especially
Yeah,
wow, what's going on with the Jewish population and the Palestinian population. And just at the end of the day, it's like I don't want to see anybody die over this stuff. We should be able to
right.
talk it through. And if
Yeah,
you don't agree, you don't agree.
right. And I want to share another story that I had because I think it's just, I think for me, I look at especially young Black men because of being a mom of young Black men and just see how society just instantly just kind of puts a label on them. Um, I remember I had this Indian woman come into the salon. It was her first time as a client, and I had these two young boys walking by, and it was very, very, very frigid outside, and they're like going into a corner and they're trying to light a cigarette. And she's just like, she can't focus on the consultation that I'm having with her. She's focusing on the two gentlemen that are behind me. So they're kind of standing there. So I kindly went outside to the guys because I could just tell she was like, what are they doing? She just was very, very uneasy. And I was like, oh, please don't worry about it. So I walked outside and I said, hey guys, I said, I'm going to ask you guys that you guys don't smoke right here. And I said, this is exactly what I said to them. I said, I just want to let you know that I see you. I have children that look like you, and I want you to know that I'm not scared of you because of the way that you look. I said, and I'm not judging you.
Why did
But
you
this
feel the
late,
need to? Why did you have to feel the need to tell them
because
that?
they came off like, why can't I stand here? And I gave them the example.
Hmm.
I see you. She may not see you how I see you. I'm not looking at you just because you're a young Black man with your pants sagging down that you're going to come in and rob me or do something bad to me. I'm looking at you like you're one of my kids and you're just standing here enjoying your cigarette or whatever it is that you're smoking. You're not here to hurt me. So I was just letting them know that I see them. And every day since that time, those boys would walk by my salon and say, hi, Miss Monique, because the conversation that I had with them, it was just like, listen, this isn't about me. This isn't about you, but this is about my customer. And all I know is that that lady never came back. That lady never came back. She, for some reason, didn't feel safe in I guess because of the boys or whatever the case might be. But it's just that I hate that people look at somebody because of the clothes that they have on, how they're carried. Because if they were young Black men in suits, I don't believe that they would have looked at them like that. However, maybe she would have. I don't know. But I think that people judge people for their appearance. Okay, if you have saggy pants on, yeah, do I like the saggy look? No, but guess what? That's just a style that the kids have created and that's just what they do, right? And
Well,
maybe not so bad.
and context
What?
matters, right? Unfortunately,
Yeah,
context matters. If they would have been two kids with baggy suits and a cigarette in their mouth and they would have been walking into, Def Jam, it'd be a different story. Or walking into Nike, it'd be a different story. If that were the case, but if they're walking into J.P. Morgan, that might not be the right context to do it. But it shouldn't be. They You're going to get. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, you're going to get judged, but as long as you're able to handle that, that's fine.
absolutely. Yeah,
But
yeah.
the interesting thing about like that lady that you told in the story, she never came back, but she could have came
Never came
back,
back. She could have.
and she could have been like, you know what, I failed in this situation. I'm sorry I acted like that. Not that she did, but I bring it up. Say that's the other thing I really love about America is you can fail. And look, I, failure is a way of life in some of the industries that I've worked in, you're failing many more times than you're succeeding. But you just need to succeed a certain amount of time to actually be successful, but it's one of the few places in this world where you can fall on your ass. You can totally dive. You can totally spiral out of control,
Mm-hmm.
and you still have a chance to come back. I mean, I think that's why America loves a comeback story, but at the end of the day, you can still pick
Absolutely.
yourself up in this country and make something of yourself, no matter what your disposition, no matter what your background. But I think the thing that has to be there, before I sound like I'm so positive and people start saying, well, what the heck are you smoking? So positive. The one thing that has to be there, I believe, hope. You have, that's the thing that keeps
Yeah.
people going, is there. And if there's no hope, that's when
Mm-hmm.
there's despair. And when there's despair, that's not even failure. Despair is worse than failure because you don't see hope. You don't feel like you have a chance, and you shouldn't feel like
Yeah.
that. That's the thing. People just need to feel like there's a chance. They have hope in being successful doing something that they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
something that they love, but something that they feel is worthwhile for them. But that hope is the word for me. Hope is what cancels despair, and with despair canceled, failure's not that bad, right? Failure is, all right, you learn. Failure is a learning
Mm-hmm.
experience. If you haven't failed, you really haven't learned too much. It's probably not a wealthy, successful, whatever you consider somebody to be successful, whether it's monetary, whether it's material, whether it's life. I guarantee you they failed at something. I sure as hell
Absolutely.
have failed at a lot. And I'm not even saying I'm successful. I'm just saying I've failed a lot because you try to do a lot of different things, or you attempt to do things. It's just like it's just, hey, look, it's fine. It's just like finding a partner, getting married. If it was so easy, there wouldn't be that much divorce. If it was so easy, some of us wouldn't date as much to get to that person, to find that partner. It ain't easy. Life ain't easy. Finding somebody to be your partner is not easy. It's okay if you fail, and I've been there before. But it's okay if you fail because you learn. Now, if you don't learn and you keep on failing, that's another issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about hope to me, though. It's all about hope.
And let's talk about that. Let's talk about um, failed marriages.
Okay. I
Yeah,
have
let's do it.
experience with that. So let's talk
Well,
about that.
I mean, I have I have experience with it as well. We're, it's just like, okay, I could say in my marriage where I think my marriage fell, right? And you could say what yours was. I can speak on our marriage, and I can say to you, Jamie, from being your wife, I think that sometimes it's a little confusing to me on how your marriages did not succeed. I think that because you are a partner that is very respectful, you're very, you include, it's just like this man, I don't ever hear him say me. It's always we. You encourage me to be better. You make me a better person. And I think it's important that, and again, you can look back and say, okay, well, I was married at, this young age, and then you did this and you do that. I know that for me, communication has been such and I'm going to say a struggle. I'm learning so much more about communicating with my husband, with you now. Not really having, I thought I was a great communicator until I met you, and you're like, yeah, like you're not that great. And I used to think it was my ex that really wasn't the good communicator. But I, for myself, was saying I was a better communicator than he was, but just still not good. So I think, and with all that being said, for you as my husband, great communicator, a great partner. There is some things, of course, that I'm like, okay, I think that sometimes. All right, so there's like certain ways that marriages come together, right? So there's, the way that we met, the way that we started out. So it ends up to just coming together, and you're building on this relationship, and you're learning one another, and you're like, okay, I know what your boundaries are, you know what my boundaries are, and we kind of come to an agreement to say, okay, don't cross those boundaries and we'll be good. um, but where do you see that, maybe you could have did better, and maybe or not even what you could have did better. What have you truly learned about your your marriages in the past to your marriage now?
Well, look, I am a veteran of 3 marriages, and I'm proud to say that. Kind of because, look, and I appreciate the words that you said about me, although I laugh at that because you're getting the benefit of me learning from the failures of what I just talked about. So,
Hmm.
believe me, I don't think that my 2 previous spouses would probably say some of the same things. I'm not the easiest person to live with. I'm not even
You're
gonna
not. You're
even
not.
suggest that. But we've been together for 8 years, going on our third year of marriage. And those 8 years, I've never been with anybody 8 years straight. So you're getting the the learnings that I had from the 2 marriages before and relationships before, and the things that I had to self-evaluate, be self-aware. I think you're also getting
Hmm.
the advantage of actually on the business side, like when you're in corporate America and you move up the ranks and you become a leader and you get poked and prodded and you get these 360 evaluations and everybody's giving feedback from you, getting feedback from above, from your peers, from your subordinates. And if you want to be a good leader, you can't be callous to it, and it makes you incredibly self-aware. And if you learn from it, you can take that self-awareness into your relationship too. And in no way, shape, or form is relationship a business, but yet there are some learnings from that you can use in your relationship that I think helps. But at the end of the day, um, I'm all those things that you said I am until I'm not, right? Right? It's like everybody has those trigger points until they're not. I think we have a great relationship. It's not a perfect relationship because we still have so much to learn about each other and grow. So you can say, hey, we know each other's boundaries. I would say we know the boundaries that we know because we
Yes.
haven't even approached the boundaries that we don't know yet, which is a good thing. And then eventually it may be a bad thing when we find out what that is, but there's that foundation
Hmm.
that we're building and have continued to build that allows us to be vulnerable and be able to say, look, this needs to be discussed and we need to work this through no matter who's initiated it, no matter who instigated it. But no, I would be I would be interested to see if that was the same commentary from my previous spouses, and both were wonderful, great women. I don't have a bad word, or quite frankly, I don't even have poor memories about them. I mean, I just chalk it
Hmm.
up that it just didn't work at the time. Because I always say, you meet the wrong person at the right time, the right person at the wrong time. You can meet the wrong person at the wrong time, or eventually you're going to meet the right person at the right time, which I think for me, that's what happened with you. And then you got to be experienced and savvy enough to know, because then you have to act on it, right? And that's about that right person, wrong person, right time. It's like, can you act on it and do what you need to do to secure it? Because you know that this is the best thing that you've seen and you need to lock it down, because if you don't, you may not get that chance again. And that there has to be that value component there.
Hmm.
And look, I think it still needs to continue. I'm not the same person I was 8 years ago, neither are you.
No.
And there has to be, everybody says people grow apart, where you got to be conscious of growing together. And that
Hmm.
takes a whole lot of communication. It takes a whole lot of compromising. But I don't, I think we compromise in our relationship. I just never feel like I'm compromising, because when
Hmm.
you care about somebody and what they're doing and how they're doing it, and you want to be involved with it, is it really compromise? It's like of course, as you know, if you listen to the show, I don't have biological kids. I got a trough of of kids and grandkids from you, so you would know as a mom that
Hmm.
you probably never felt like you were compromising until they were old enough you could sit back and look at everything that you've done and everything that you did, and you say, wow, I really compromised and sacrificed a lot. But at the time, I'm sure it never feels like that for a parent.
No. 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 You look back once they're grown and you're like, dang, like you just give up everything to be a parent. And that goes on both sides because, the mom, I want to say most mothers do majority of, and we had this conversation before, but I definitely don't think that you look at it at the time, but then when the time comes, you just say, everything down to setting everybody's appointments, down to, making sure that kids are fed, making sure that they have the doctor's appointments, making sure that they get to school, making sure they do their homework, making sure they're doing the sports. And one thing I have to encourage young women is to always to make sure that you take a moment for yourself. Because when you are not happy, and what I mean by this, yeah, we're all happy. We want our children. We're doing all these, things to make our children happy. But it is so important that you take a moment and just take a moment for yourself, whether that is going and getting a massage, whether it's going to get your nails or your toes done. Matter of fact, or just closing the bathroom door and just giving yourself a moment to breathe because your children can sense and they can feel the stress, and you put that on your children whether you're trying to or not, but they can feel the stress, they feel the things that are going on. As a mom, I think the kids can feel when their parents are stressed out, and that's not something that we want to put onto our children. So as parents, and just not as women, but if you are that person that is taking the responsibility on, and just your schedule, your brain doesn't shut off at night because you're like, okay, did I do this, did I do that, are the lunches packed, or this, tomorrow's this, tomorrow's that. And it's a constant, your brain is a constant overflow, and it can be overwhelming for a woman because that's what we're supposed to do, right? But again, I think it's very important that women take a moment to really, really just take some self-care for themselves so that they can be a better mom and a better woman to themselves and a better partner.
I would say I agree, but I can only say yes because I have no idea what that is because I've never experienced it. So I can be sympathetic to it. Can't be empathetic
Well,
to it, but I can be sympathetic
you
to it.
know,
I see it. I see it. You're a great mother. I've seen your kids are great. You and your ex did a wonderful job
thank you.
raising those three kids, and now your kids are doing a wonderful job raising their grandkids. So that definitely that apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. So you should be happy.
Thank you. I think so. If we could just touch base on this, I think that for me, I grew up with a family that really didn't communicate. It was like fight or flight. Like you had to prepare yourself. It was like you were thrown out there to the wolves and you had to figure it out. And you had to, it was nothing that was given to you. So if you wanted it, you had to go get it. And so when I was raising my children, and the same for my ex, I think that, my ex was the same way. It was just like, you know what, this is, if you want it, you have to go get it. Nothing was said, oh, this is a plan for you and this is how everything is going to be mapped out. And this is this is the roadmap to success. That was never given to me. Um, and so I think raising my kids, it was, I tried to give them everything, but the one thing that I didn't give them was the tools to communicate because I never communicated. So it was like we were screamers. It was like, oh, so let me scream. I got to scream to get my point across because I want to be heard. And the only way that I can be heard is if I'm screaming. And Jamie to this day will still say to me, you don't have to scream. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea, sir. You have no
Wait,
idea. Scream? You have no idea. I don't scream. You want to hear me scream? You really have
no,
no
I really don't. But you know what?
right. So what?
You know who else gets thrown to the wolves? You know who else doesn't get the tools? People who are failing on their weight loss journey. And they're not failing because there's not things around. They just don't have the right tools. They don't have the right environment. So then they should give Fit and Trim Weight Loss Clinic in North Andover, Massachusetts a call, right? At
Hmm. Yeah.
781-977-SLIM or 7546. They can help you. You don't feel alone. Don't feel like you don't have tools. Don't feel like you're thrown to the wolves. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're local, stop on in. If you're in California, give us a call. We can help you out. And you'll find out the tools that we have that can help you get where you need to go on your weight loss journey. That is my
So
shameless plug for the day.
Our staff calls and will call you weekly with your weight update and just check in to see how you're feeling, to give you any advice about maybe eating, things that you could eat to help you lose the weight, maybe some exercise tools. All these things are given to you at our clinic. So I want to say we are a family, and we're here to help our family that joins our clinic to help you in this weight loss journey. So like Jamie said, give us a call at Fit and Trim Weight Loss Clinic at North Andover, Massachusetts.
All right, so what are we ending with today, Monique? What nugget of wisdom are you leaving for us today?
Well, it's a little disappointing. I can't really leave you with much. My brain is all over the place today. I just got done traveling, and I am been on the computer and with staff all day today. Never had a moment. Was with my grandson. I'm just mentally not there today. So if you want to
You know what
take
this
it,
is? Everybody,
if
you
you
don't know
want
what
to
this
take
is?
it
This
over,
is the smallest violin in the world playing that sad music in the
I
background.
just can't. I just can't. I'm overstimulated today. I'm overstimulated.
Okay. Oh, what was Monique? Tough day today.
It was a tough day today. Yes.
Well,
You
hope,
you wouldn't
hope.
know.
I'll leave. I will leave. I will leave. I don't care if it's a tough day. I have hope that the next day is going to be better. The next minute's going to be better. The sun will rise. But at the end of the day, you can be successful if you want to be in this country.
Absolutely.
You just have to have the hope. You need help. Can't do it all by yourself. Nobody
You
does
know
it
what
by
though,
themselves.
Jamie? It's not just the hope. You got to have some type of drive. You have to, you
But you
can't give
can't
up.
have drive without hope. You got
But
hope
you,
is the gas to the out to me personally. I
hmm
believe hope is the gas to the engine,
hmm
and despair
yeah,
is the sludge
hmm
that burns up the engine. All right. So
yeah.
you gotta have
Okay.
something, and it's just like our former president said, the audacity of hope. That's how powerful it is. Hope has the audaciousness to believe. Hope gives you that belief in anything. And that's what that audacity of hope means. That is the fuel to the engine of success personally. So I'll
hmm
leave everybody
All right.
with that.
Okay.
All right. So
Sounds like a plan.
get back here safe and sound from your trip. Everybody, we will see you on the next podcast in the next couple of days. Thank you for listening. And that's it for episode number 4.
Bye.